Ayrton Sena, 1994. On May 1, 1994, 34-year-old Ayrton Sena was leading the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola, driving his Williams FW16 at race speed. The three-time world champion from Brazil was already a legend, known for his wet-weather brilliance and aggressive driving style. It was lap 7, and Senna approached the Tamburello corner at approximately 192 miles per hour. This fast left-hander had caught drivers before, but Senna knew it well. Without warning, his car suddenly veered off the racing line and left the track. The Williams shot straight toward the concrete wall on the outside of the corner, with no sign of braking or correction. Impact came at nearly full speed. The car slammed into the unprotected concrete barrier, crumpling the front end instantly. Debris exploded across the track. Among the wreckage, a suspension rod broke free from the car and pierced directly through Senna's helmet visor. The metal component penetrated his skull, causing massive head and brain trauma. Medical crews reached him within seconds, but the damage was catastrophic. Senna was extracted from the cockpit and airlifted by helicopter to Bologna's Maggiore Hospital. Doctors worked desperately to save him, but his injuries were unsurvivable. Later that afternoon, Ayrton Senna was pronounced dead. Brazil declared 3 days of national mourning. His funeral in São Paulo drew over 3 million people into the streets. Senna's death triggered immediate safety reforms, including track modifications, improved barriers, and mandatory cockpit safety enhancements that fundamentally changed Formula One racing. Pryce, 1977. On March 5, 1977, 27-year-old Welsh driver Tom Pryce was racing in the South African Grand Prix at Kyalami Circuit. The shadow driver from Wales was having a solid race, running in the midfield pack as the cars circulated at racing speeds exceeding 170 miles per hour. Earlier in the race, another car had pulled off with a small fire on the opposite side of the track. Two young marshals, without authorization from race control, decided to run across the main racing circuit carrying heavy fire extinguishers to deal with the smoking car. The marshals sprinted across the track at a section where cars crested a rise, meaning drivers had virtually no warning of what lay ahead. Pryce came over the rise at full throttle, approximately 170 miles per hour, with zero visibility of the marshals crossing below. By the time he saw them, reaction was impossible. His shadow struck 19-year-old Marshal Frederik Jansen van Vuuren directly, killing the teenager instantly. The marshal's 40-pound fire extinguisher was launched upward by the impact like a projectile. The heavy metal cylinder flew through the air and struck Pryce's head with devastating force, killing him on impact inside his cockpit. Pryce's car, now carrying its dead driver, continued down the track at speed, with no steering input, eventually crashing heavily into barriers. Both men died instantly. The accident was captured on film and remains one of the most horrific incidents in motorsport history. Formula One immediately overhauled its marshalling procedures, establishing strict protocols that marshals could never cross an active racing surface without permission and proper safety measures. Roger Williamson, 1973. On July 29, 1973, 25-year-old British driver Roger Williamson was competing in only his second Formula One race at the Dutch Grand Prix in Zandvoort. The rookie was running his March chassis in the midfield when disaster struck on lap 8. At high speed, a tire on Williamson's car suffered a catastrophic failure, causing him to lose control instantly. The March veered off track and hit the poorly installed Armco barriers. The barrier acted like a ramp, and the car was launched into the air, flipping completely upside down before landing on its rollover hoop. The inverted car immediately burst into flames. Williamson was alive inside, strapped upside down in his cockpit, conscious and screaming for help as fire engulfed the chassis. Fellow driver David Purley saw the accident unfold in his mirrors. In an extraordinary act of courage, Purley stopped his own race car, jumped out and sprinted across the active racing circuit to help. For several minutes, Purley attempted single-handedly to flip the burning March upright, desperately trying to free his trapped colleague. He waved frantically at passing cars and marshals for assistance. Shockingly, race officials did not stop the race. Cars continued screaming past at full speed, while Purley fought the flames barehanded. Most track marshals lacked proper fireproof equipment and hesitated to approach the inferno. By the time a fire truck finally arrived and extinguished the flames, Roger Williamson had died from smoke inhalation and asphyxiation inside his cockpit. He wasn't severely injured by the crash itself, just trapped upside down as fire consumed oxygen around him. The haunting footage of Purley's solo rescue attempt, while the race continued, remains one of Formula One's most disturbing moments. Roland Ratzenberger, 1994. On April 30, 1994, 33-year-old Austrian driver Roland Ratzenberger was participating in qualifying for the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. The rookie was driving for the small Simtech team in only his third Formula One event. During an earlier qualifying run, Ratzenberger's car had sustained front wing damage that his team attempted to repair. On his next flying lap, the temporary repair failed. At approximately 195 miles per hour, approaching the high-speed Villeneuve corner, his front wing collapsed completely. Without front downforce, the Simtech became instantly uncontrollable. Ratzenberger's car shot straight off the racing line at nearly full speed. He hit the concrete barrier head-on with tremendous force. The car disintegrated on contact, scattering debris across the circuit. Ratzenberger was killed instantly from a basilar skull fracture, a catastrophic head and neck injury caused by extreme deceleration forces. Medical crews reached him within seconds, but he had died on impact. His death marked the first driver fatality at a Formula One race weekend in 12 years, ending a period during which the sport had believed it had conquered its deadly past. Less than 24 hours later, Ayrton Senna would die at the same circuit during the race itself. The 1994 San Marino Grand Prix weekend became known as Formula One's darkest weekend, with 2 drivers killed in separate accidents within a single day. Ratzenberger's death, though initially overshadowed by Senna's more famous crash, proved equally significant in forcing Formula One to confront its safety standards. The incidents directly led to mandatory implementation of the HANS device and numerous other safety innovations that have prevented similar basilar skull fractures. Jules Bianchi, 2014. On October 5, 2014, 25-year-old French driver Jules Bianchi was racing for the Marussia team in the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka circuit. Heavy rain had been falling throughout the race, creating treacherous conditions on the high-speed circuit. Several laps earlier, German driver Adrian Sutil had crashed his Sauber at the Dunlop curve, and a recovery vehicle was on track retrieving the damaged car. Double yellow flags were waving, indicating drivers should slow considerably and be prepared to stop. Bianchi approached the accident scene under caution, but lost control on standing water. His Marussia hydroplaned off the racing line at reduced but still significant speed. The car slid off track and went directly toward the recovery crane that was loading Sutil's wrecked car. Bianchi's car struck the rear of the heavy tractor with its nose, but the low-slung Formula One chassis slid partially underneath the crane's chassis. The impact subjected Bianchi to massive deceleration forces as his car was compressed and deflected by the crane's underside. His helmet struck the crane's framework with catastrophic results. He sustained a diffuse axonal brain injury, one of the most severe forms of traumatic brain damage. Bianchi was immediately unconscious and required emergency extraction from the cockpit. He was rushed to Mia General Medical Center in Yokkaichi, where surgeons performed emergency procedures to relieve brain swelling. Bianchi fell into a coma and never regained consciousness. After 9 months in various medical facilities, Jules Bianchi died on July 17, 2015. He was the first Formula One driver to die from racing injuries since Ayrton Senna 21 years earlier. His accident prompted immediate safety reviews and led to the introduction of the virtual safety car system and eventually the Halo cockpit protection device. Formula One retired his car number 17 permanently in his honor. Gilles Villeneuve, 1982. On May 8, 1982, 32-year-old Canadian driver Gilles Villeneuve was participating in final qualifying for the Belgian Grand Prix at Zolder Circuit. The Ferrari driver was beloved by fans for his spectacular, wheel-to-wheel racing style and was desperately trying to improve his grid position, the starting lineup for a race determined by time trials beforehand. His teammate Didier Pironi had set a competitive time, and Villeneuve was pushing hard in the closing minutes of the session. Racing at over 140 miles per hour, Villeneuve came up rapidly behind the much slower German driver Jochen Rindt, who was completing a slow cool-down lap. Rindt, hearing the Ferrari approaching at high speed, moved to the right side of the track to allow Villeneuve through. At precisely the same moment, Villeneuve also veered right to overtake. Neither driver could see the other's intention in time. The Ferrari's nose made contact with the March's left rear wheel. The impact launched Villeneuve's Ferrari violently into the air. The car began cartwheeling end over end across the circuit at tremendous speed, disintegrating as it tumbled. During one of the rotations, Villeneuve was thrown from the cockpit, still attached to his seat. He struck the ground with massive force, sustaining a fatal fracture to his neck and cervical spine. The violent ejection from the tumbling car proved instantly fatal. Medical crews reached him quickly, but he was unresponsive. Villeneuve was rushed to University Hospital in Leuven, where doctors confirmed the severity of his injuries. Despite all efforts, Gilles Villeneuve died later that evening. The Ferrari team and entire Formula One community mourned one of the sport's most charismatic and talented drivers. Ronnie Peterson, 1978. On September 10, 1978, 34-year-old Swedish driver Ronnie Peterson was starting the Italian Grand Prix at Monza from the second row, a solid starting position. Known as Super Swede, Peterson was one of the fastest and most popular drivers of the 1970s, racing for Lotus. At the race start, the tightly bunched pack of cars accelerated toward the first chicane at the end of the long main straight. As cars jockeyed for position entering the braking zone, several made contact in the chaos. Peterson's Lotus was clipped by another car and launched sideways into the Armco barrier on the right side of the track. The impact was severe, and Peterson's car burst into flames immediately. Fuel from ruptured tanks ignited, engulfing the Lotus in fire. Several drivers, including James Hunt, stopped their cars and rushed to help, pulling Peterson from the burning wreckage. He was conscious and talking, suffering from multiple compound fractures to both legs along with other injuries. Medical teams transported Peterson to Negarda Hospital in Milan, where orthopedic surgeons worked through the night performing extensive operations on his shattered legs. The surgery lasted several hours. Initially, doctors were cautiously optimistic about his survival. However, during the night, Peterson's condition deteriorated rapidly. He developed a fat embolism, a complication where fat particles from his broken bones entered his bloodstream and blocked vital blood vessels. Despite intensive care efforts, Ronnie Peterson died early the next morning. His death devastated the Formula One community. Peterson had been leading the championship battle and was poised to challenge for the title. His teammate Mario Andretti, who won the race and clinched the 1978 World Championship, could barely celebrate after learning of Peterson's death. The tragedy led to improved emergency medical response protocols and modifications to Monza's first chicane to prevent similar start line incidents. Jochen Rindt, 1970. On September 5, 1970, 28-year-old Austrian driver Jochen Rindt was practicing for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza circuit. The charismatic Lotus driver was leading the Formula One World Championship and appeared certain to clinch his first title. His Lotus 72 was tuned to have almost no extra downforce, so it could reach higher top speeds on Monza's fast track. During a practice session, Rindt was braking from over 150 miles per hour, approaching the Parabolica corner when his car suddenly veered left without warning. The Lotus shot off the racing line and struck the guardrail at high speed. The impact was made catastrophically worse because the car went partially underneath the metal barrier, which effectively scalped the front of the chassis and decelerated the car with extreme violence. Rindt had been racing without his crotch strap fastened, a dangerous practice some drivers adopted for comfort and easier cockpit exit. Without the full 6-point harness properly secured, Rindt shot forward under his lap belt during the impact. The safety belt buckle was driven into his chest and throat with tremendous force, causing fatal internal injuries to his chest and neck. He sustained massive trauma and was unconscious when extracted from the wreckage. Jochen Rindt died en route to hospital. Investigators suspected either brake failure or aerodynamic instability caused the car to veer off course, but the exact cause was never definitively determined. Because Rindt had built such a commanding championship lead before his death, no other driver managed to surpass his points total in the remaining races. Jochen Rindt was crowned 1970 Formula One World Champion posthumously, the only driver in history to win the championship after his death. His tragedy led to renewed focus on proper safety harness use and improved barrier design. Wolfgang von Trips, 1961. On September 10, 1961, 33-year-old German Count Wolfgang von Trips was racing for Ferrari in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. The aristocratic driver was leading the World Championship and needed only to finish second or better to clinch his first title. On the second lap of the race, von Trips was battling with British driver Jim Clark's Lotus through the high-speed Parabolica section. The two cars were running side by side at approximately 140 miles per hour when their wheels made contact. The touch sent von Trips's Ferrari veering sharply left off the racing circuit. The car shot up an embankment and struck a wire fence that separated the track from a packed spectator viewing area. The Ferrari disintegrated as it hit the fence, scattering wreckage across the grandstand. 15 spectators standing along the fence were killed instantly by the car and flying debris. Many more suffered serious injuries. Von Trips was thrown from his disintegrating Ferrari during the impact. He landed on the track and was reportedly already dead. Medical teams confirmed he had sustained fatal injuries in the crash. The race controversially continued despite the carnage, and von Trips's teammate Phil Hill won, clinching the 1961 World Championship in the most tragic circumstances imaginable. The Monza disaster, with 16 total fatalities, remains one of Formula One's deadliest single incidents. The catastrophe prompted immediate changes to spectator safety regulations, including improved barriers, greater separation between tracks and crowds, and stricter enforcement of safety zones. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for similar ones, and feel free to drop suggestions for the next video in the comments.